Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise tonight in this debate of historical importance because the world has changed, and I know that's an overused phrase, but we're not in the same place we were in a week ago, because Vladimir Putin is even threatening the use of nuclear weapons after an illegal, appalling, aggressive assault on a democracy that didn't threaten him. One can look back and say, what should we have done at different points in the history of the relationship with what is the former Soviet Union and the West? When the Soviet Union fell, I remember wishing that we had launched, that we would, in that moment, wishing, where's the Marshall Plan? What are we going to do for the former states that were once the USSR, Russia and its neighbors? Clearly they need help. We didn't offer it. We were in a triumphal mood of Western capitalist hegemony, and we just abandoned the people of Russia. We essentially abandoned them to organized crime. Capitalism, maybe, democracy, not much, but a lot of kleptocracy, of natural resources, and the people of Russia had reduced life expectancy in this time, and still to this day. Their quality of life, having gotten rid of the USSR, went down. That should never have happened. We should have been thinking, we should have been, and some of us were, wishing for the peace dividend. We'd been waiting for the peace dividend, that when we'd stop putting so much money in budgets in the United States and all around the world into the military-industrial complex. We don't need it anymore. There is no more USSR. But no, we found other enemies. We decided we didn't need a peace dividend. We kept investing in war. And we missed the chance. This is probably the biggest chance we missed, because Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan started down the path of nuclear disarmament, global nuclear disarmament. And here we stand as Canada. We have a treaty to abolish nuclear weapons, and Canada isn't even a signatory. We need to pay attention to this, but we thought that nuclear weapons were in our rearview mirror. They're not. They're in stockpiles, and they're in missiles. And we need to pay attention again to the threat of nuclear war. In tonight's debate, which has been mostly very much on the same themes, I need to address there has been more than occasional misplaced notions that now we need to build more pipelines, that Europe needs more fossil fuels. But if we look at what the leaders in Europe and even in Ukraine are saying, we do not hear these calls. In fact, the Energy Commissioner for the European Union, Kadri Simpson, said this: the crisis in Russia means that we have to, quote, boost renewable energies and energy efficiency as fast as technologically possible. What does Germany say? Well, Germany just axed their biggest carbon project with Russia. Nord Stream 2 pipeline has been canceled. And what does the economy and climate minister, who happens to be Green Party co-leader Robert Habeck, say in Scholz's government? Now is the time to accelerate and shift to renewables. It's being a petrostate and having dictators of petrostates that makes the world less safe. Some of the big oil companies are even saying they have to get out of Russia. Shell and BP have pulled their projects out of Russia, but look at Exxon, it's still in there. Let's ask Exxon in every way we can why it's still invested in Russian oil and gas. And the French company, Total in Energies, still invested in Russia. But the most compelling information about what should we do about fossil fuels in this crisis is to listen to the head of the IPCC Ukraine delegate, the scientist, Dr. Svetlana Kharkovska, who said this, quote, human-induced climate change, and she said this while bombs were falling near Kiev. She said, human-induced climate change and the war on Ukraine have the same roots: fossil fuels and our dependence on them. We will not surrender in Ukraine, and we hope the world will not surrender in building a climate-resilient future, close quotes. I want to thank our Deputy Prime Minister. We are unique in the world that our Deputy Prime Minister happens to be an expert on Russia. She wrote the book, Sale of the Century, about the kleptocracy and organized crime that took over the former USSR. I know that her background, and with the unique honor of being personally banned from Russia by Vladimir Putin equips her well to lead the fight to get the swift financial resources taken away from Russia. My time is up, Madam Speaker. I look forward to questions.
Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Saanich Gulf Islands for that speech. I knew she was going to be speaking about fossil fuels, but I'm very happy that she brought up nuclear weapons and Canada's inaction in the nuclear ban, treaty ban. But I would just like to give her some more time to talk about, to respond to some of the conservative calls for Canada to export more oil to Europe or gas to Europe, just some of the logistical problems that faces that being even contemplated.
Honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and to my honourable colleague from South Okanagan, West Kootenay. If the Ukraine, if Zelensky was saying, Canada, send your oil, I'd have a really hard time saying no. I don't think I could say no to President Zelensky for anything. I am so inspired by him, but that's not what he's saying. It's not what Germany's saying. It's not what the EU is saying. It's what Alberta is saying. And I think taking advantage of a crisis to promote your own product is not a good look.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for her intervention here tonight. And I want to build on the comment from the NDP in talking about that. And I mean, the line is the logistical challenge of Canada providing, for example, natural gas to Europe. But the other reality, the logistical challenge we have and that Europe faces is they are reliant on Russian energy at this point. So I think part of the opportunity is when we look at the perspective we have as Canadians of the attention to I think from a human rights perspective, from a global perspective, as what we're seeing here, our record on the environment, our record in the international community stands much better than Russia. So I just like the member from Saanich Gulf Islands to talk about the logistical reality of where Russia, kind of has Europe caught in a bind when it comes to natural gas. Can Canada not play a better role? Thank you.
Saanich Gulf Islands.
Some of the commentary that I've been looking up today of the German discussion about what to do now that they're cutting off Russian natural gas is discussions about the fact that natural gas that comes from fracking has the same carbon footprint as coal. So they're actually discussing whether in the short term they should use a bit of coal to bridge till they get to renewables, which is the only reason they were going to use natural gas. Obviously, the propaganda around natural gas has been very effective because I know a lot of people honestly think it's a low carbon fuel. But when you look at the whole upstream fracking and massive releases of methane, it's a climate killer.
L'honorable député Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always a pleasure to hear the different positions of the party in this House. And one of the things that we discussed tonight was what do we do with the Russian diplomats who are here? Do we expel them? And I agree that the protests were very peaceful. So I would like to hear the position of my colleague from Saanich Gulf Islands on the Russian diplomats.
Merci à ma chère.
Thank you to my colleague. I think it was a good idea. The government says that everything is on the table, but I think there might be a reason to protect the Russian diplomats here because they could be a channel of communication. They might be sympathetic to the Ukraine cause. If not, yes, let's expel them. Definitely. Send them back.
Brief question. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Given the discussion of what's been going on about oil and Canadian oil and gas and this member's comments about it, I'm wondering if she can give us or give me her perspective on what she thinks is more realistic. That a pipeline that is supposedly now 4 times as much as it was before is going to be built and provide this sustainable carbon-based fuel to Europe, or if there's going to be a transition towards more renewables and electrification. What's more realistic of happening?
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands, a brief answer.
There's what's realistic and what's necessary. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report just today reinforces that we don't have a choice. If humanity wants to survive within a climate that sustains our lives and human civilization, we don't have a choice. We get off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And for the governments of Europe, they seem to see that this is an opportunity to move faster towards renewables, not to back up into the fossil era.